Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We hope you enjoyed the commercials. I'll call us to order for this special call meeting for today, June the 2nd at 9:33. And item 1 is a resolution number 2022-06-02-01. This is a request for water distribution material. Mr. Marshall Carrier is here to educate us.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you mentioned, this agenda request is in relation to a materials request for our water distribution guys. At the end of the day, based on market conditions, there's just material availability shortage for the entire market, whether it's compression couplings, ball valves, you name it. From an infrastructure standpoint, material standpoint, there's a shortage nationwide. Everybody's aware of that. COVID residual issues and availability makes it hard to come up with these materials on short notice. So the primary purpose of this agenda item is to supplement that future need that will be coming down the pipeline as early as next year, so that the city of Danville is in a reactive position and being proactive to that, right? So with the primary concern of keeping our existing customers in water from a regulatory standpoint, then you move on to the ability to provide service to the new customer base that's coming online. So this agenda item request is for the authorization of $44,090 to go ahead and purchase those materials to allow our folks to do their work.
Do I hear a motion to the effect?
I'll move to approve Resolution 2022-06-0201.
Thank you, Commissioner Holland. Is there a second? Mr. Cottle, thank you. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Item 2 is resolution number 2022-06-02-02. This is a reimbursement resolution. Ms. Compton.
Yes, so this resolution is essentially to
Thank you, Mark.
cover expenditures that we need to make for some of our larger capital projects that are beginning and ongoing. For instance, they're described in section 2B, I believe, which includes your Lebanon Road project and other big items. But this resolution essentially allows us to pay for certain things from the general fund and be reimbursed by the bond issuance that we are working on that's coming down the pipe.
So
But
it's a timing issue.
yes, it is. Without the resolution, we can't reimburse ourselves from that bond funding.
Enough said. Do I hear a motion to that effect?
Move we approve Resolution 2022-06-0202.
Thank you, Commissioner Cottle. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Holland, thank you, ma'am. Discussion? Chair will call the question. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Item 3 is the draft budget presentation. Mr. Coffey, floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. The first thing we want to review together is the community agency spreadsheet again. And we want your all's confirmation that this is your contribution in the budget separately before we punch out a final version of the budget. First thing is above the subtotal line, which is above the Wilderness Trace Child Development. So you have an area there where you move from 136,000 in last year's fiscal year to 144.8, 136.4 to 144.8. It drops off Central Latino and adds Boyle ASAP of $2,700 investment. The rest of them, as far as I could tell, are existing applicants. The Shepherd's House was below, that was a bigger one. Wilderness Trace is 7,000. The Heart of Danville is below their request at 20. Senior Citizen Center is fully funded, well, 66,000 out of 66.5. you can see the other allocations, and so we're going to ask you to authorize or approve ultimately this list. When you move below that, down towards the bottom in shared agencies, we have peeled out the operational expenses of the airport board that the city had traditionally been incurring as direct cost on our insurance policy. And then also, we are still suggesting that you add the funding for a leased vehicle for their courtesy car. That's a total of $14,000. Then out of their original request, there's $2 amounts. One was for a grant match of $26,792.50. We have included that in the line below the $14,000. And then also, they request contribution towards the master plan. What we are proposing here is just a basic $50,000 contribution, and we will hold that, and simply when it's time for them to need a reimbursement, they just ask, and then we'll reimburse them up to that $50,000 number. If they get through the fiscal year and spend more money than that, which when I was at their board meeting, it didn't look like that their project process would enable them to do that. I mean, they'll be, a couple months and getting initiated, and those steps would, the $50,000 from the city should get them through the fiscal year that we're in. If not, you can always seek to add to that amount later. And then the economic development allocation, we are labeling that at $200,000 to be, part of it is to be determined. We are suggesting inside of the budget that you keep $100,000 towards the Economic Development Corporation, separate $100,000 out for the EDA or a future need. The EDA has not provided a budget yet. They have not provided a full path forward at all. So we simply should hold that money until the EDA can provide that, and then you can make a decision on that later. But total investment in economic development would be, last year was 130. This year, we are suggesting it be 200, with 100 being held for the EDA, 100 going to the EDP's Revised Development Corporation.
Now, go ahead.
If we're given to the EDA, we talked about a few things. I'd really like to see them, have an attorney representation. We require minutes from all these folks.
Correct.
We really need minutes. I mean, this really needs to be a
Well,
lot more.
You're right.
tight.
They've not done anything yet. Technically, they don't have any, so they have some lifting to do before you're in a position to really distribute the money, peeling it out in our budget, holding it reserved
Okay,
until
so
they're
it's held
compliant.
but not distributed.
And
Okay,
what
'cause
we
it's
will-
not met the.
That is absolutely
Thank
correct.
you.
So
What
what
we
we'll,
have done as an EDA was take a comprehensive look at land acquisition is land acquisition. That's it. What we have done is say, how can we organize ourselves to be more efficient, more nimble, and create more accountability for staff? And that has been presented to a number of people. And Commissioner Cardle, sorry,
You can split me in half. It's okay.
yeah, you split personality. Commissioner Cardle made a motion to allocate the $200,000 to that 7-member Boyle County Development Corporation. Do I understand that correctly?
That's what I recall.
no, he did not make a motion on a dollar amount. I'm providing a dollar amount as a proposal in the budget, and we're debating that proposal, not necessarily debating the merits of
But
the EDA's effort or anything like that. Now, so we're not suggesting that the EDA has done nothing productive. What we're simply saying is, in terms of the financial request of the EDA, has not been made apparent yet.
that's correct. I agree with that. But again, I want to clear up some of the confusion out there that the motion was made and unanimously approved that whatever allocation funds we elect to put to economic development, that it goes to the Danville-Boyle County Development Corporation. That was the motion.
Right. The current Current EDP goes away.
That was the motion,
Correct.
and that's unanimous.
Correct.
Okay, I want to make sure of that. Secondly, let me go back to
I
something.
don't understand it that way. I didn't understand it that way. See, I thought it was some for EDA as well as some for the EDC,
So the new
which hadn't been
development.
formed yet, really.
Correct. So the new development corporation, once it's revised, we would suggest that either of those disbursements would require, in my mind, a presentation by the city manager at the minimum that these things have happened, right? And so I know the EDP is discussing at their June meeting a revised bylaws to reflect a revised structure and replacement of the EDP with the development corporation. And so they're presenting that, I think their intention, based on correspondence I've seen, is that their intention is to discuss a proposed bylaws that were drafted by an attorney to account for that at the June meeting, as far as I know. Now, so as long as they're headed down that road, and once they've confirmed, then confirm your support of that with the contribution like you would normally to the new development corporation. And what we're saying is that maintain the same levels you did last year to them at basically $100,000.
Yeah.
To that development corporation of $100,000. That is what we're proposing. Now, we have held out, so I'm calling it economic development allocation, right? So towards our economic development effort, the EDA should come up with some ideas, and there will need to be some,
Some
if
ideas
you're going to analyze
specific to
a
land acquisition.
parcel for
Right.
land acquisition, you want to have in your coffers some reserve to accommodate their needs
Yeah.
as those evaluations start to take place over the next, and it would be our suggestion is that should start to happen this fall at the latest, right? And so you want funds set aside for that purpose. And so
Sinking fund.
how we've structured the budget is that you have $100,000 that you can set aside for the development corporation once they've confirmed alignment with your motion. And then then you have $100,000 in reserve as you need to allocate it either to the EDA or some other economic development initiative in the community, right? You don't know necessarily what that might be, but if that makes sense. So, but before that money is distributed, we would come back and suggest to you, this is the path for that money.
That's how I understand it.
Yeah.
That's good. It's sort of a placeholder right now.
It is,
Yeah.
that's succinctly put.
Let me back up to the airport board.
Yep.
And you all know that I'm very passionate and about the economic development opportunity that presents this commission. And in fact, to quote you, Earl, it's the largest single asset for economic development that we have.
Of public infrastructure.
That said, I just want to make sure we all understand that the funds that they're asking for from us are greatly more than the funds that they asked for from the county. Upon inquiry, they said, well, they missed the budget cutoff. Well, that's a cutoff. That's not a hard and fast rule. So I suggested to them, and I discussed it with the judge and the administrative assistant there, that the airport should resubmit and have numbers that parallel ours. Airport Board has not done that. I don't know how this commission wants to go forward. I just want to bring that to your attention. It is the Danville County Airport Board. So I think that's something that, this is the time for us to discuss this.
Do you know what the airport board has asked the county for?
The, what was that, 20, what was that, Earl?
26,972.50.
Plus, they've asked them for the $50,000 for the master plan too, haven't they?
No.
No, they didn't ask for that from
They
the
have
county
not,
yet.
okay.
They just asked for the basic match of the apron project.
I think with some communication between the parties involved, the issue could be resolved.
Yeah.
But without that communication, you want this commission to be aware that it's putting 50,000 in somewhat of a joint venture that is not being matched.
Joint. Well, could we make it contingent on them at least trying to contact the county? and trying to-
Absolutely.
Well, you-
That's what I would prefer.
You know, direct the airport board or request that the airport board make that
Yeah.
request. You know, I know people have come to the city commission outside of our budget cycle, and which is why, for example, we're suggesting the $100,000 allocation towards economic development be an economic development initiative. If there's, turns out to be a good idea somewhere, you may want to do it, not necessarily tied to the EDA, right? So, you know, I would hope that the county can make similar mid-year adjustments as they need. Certainly, the commission can amend their budgets. We've done that. We've pulled money out of contingency before for specific purposes, mid-year. So hopefully, the county can align with, the project being discussed at the airport's a $400,000 to $500,000 master plan. It's compliant with the FAA regulations as a starting point. There's about 4 layers to it. One of the layers is the access to the facility. One of the layers is development around the facility. So what's important around the airport is that, say it like this, residential development around the airport is not necessarily a good fit, right? So it's really an economic development plan around the perimeter of the facility too. We want to make sure that that's considered and thought through, so that future use of the facility isn't deterred. And so there's a lot of pieces to it, and it's an expensive product, and $50,000 will not pay for it. The airport board isn't asking you to pay 100% of it at all, not yet anyway. And so certainly, we would suggest the county should participate or should at least consider the conversation.
Well, I think it's after those of us who read the Advocate Messenger, the county has sort of opened itself up. They had another request from a nonprofit just at their last meeting, was granted a sum of money that was totally outside of the funding request process. So I hope the airport board will go back and try to do a request to them.
I mean, this city has been a known supporter. Obviously, when the tornado came through, it was discovered that the city had been paying the insurance premium for the airport board through the Kentucky League of Cities for how many years?
Well, we've always done that. That was known, but what the
If
variation
it
is
was
that.
known, it wasn't appreciated.
Well, what the variation is that the insurance provider has suggested that they would just prefer that be directly acquired by them rather than on our direct policy.
But that's been part of
But
our
that,
allocation that nobody really, it was never recorded as part of our allocation.
and to your point, yes, so what the tornado did is highlight the fact that the city was making that investment without anybody else really
Yeah.
acknowledging it.
The other thing I want to share with the commission, because hold the applause, but I'll be out of here in about 6 months, hold the applause. And when I am, I want you to know that this mayor has been talking to the airport folks for at least 6 years about the need to do a master plan. And a master plan is not something that they do in 6 months. It's about a 2-year process.
Correct.
And until they get that master plan done, then trying to secure significant dollars out of federal government are slim to none. And so there is a sense of urgency on my part that it's already the bottom of the ninth and we're down 2 runs. And something's got to happen here and fairly soon, and I don't know how you accelerate that.
Confirming your commitment through our budget process helps them have confidence that they can commit to it, because like you're saying, it's a multi-year process. And so for them, having a contract with an obligation on the backside of it without anybody acknowledging that they need to support it. So this is acknowledging that you're supporting that effort and gives them confidence in making that commitment.
So in order to enhance their confidence, they need to go back to the county and ask for additional funding.
We will communicate that to their.
So I would ask you to go to the county administrator and the judge and see if there's a path forward to that effect.
We will ask the airport board to go with us and we'll talk about that.
I wouldn't wait for that. I'd go ahead and make that call because they had their first reading of their budget Tuesday, and they've got a constraint through the Department of Local Government that they can't waiver on that budget any more than a certain percentage. I don't know what that percentage is. I don't know what the detail is, but obviously, if there's a constraint there, then you're gonna have to go up the ladder to see if that can be amended.
The master plan, I always thought it was like 350 to 400. Is it up to 500 now?
Well, with the market changes and just the
Okay.
pressure on the
Okay.
private sector, yeah, it's about a $400,000 to $500,000 investment if you do.
And at this
total.
rate, with us doing 50, you can do the math. If the county jumps in, well, that's 4 to 5 years. That's still 4 to 5 years too long, but it is what it is.
Can we get you all to agree with that proposed allocations by vote, if you don't mind?
I have a question.
Okay.
The footnotes at the bottom,
Those are notes made by each one of you all to the city clerk, and we included those in this presentation just for your thoughts and consideration. I think that was the intention of the notes as they were provided to her.
so is the staff's intention to follow the suggestions of the notes?
No, the suggestions of the notes was for you all. Our intentions is to do what we're proposing in the proposed allocation column.
So, for example, Heart of Danville suggested that funds be released based upon requests for events, et cetera. Are you just going to write them a check, or what are you going to?
No, they do a quarterly allocation currently. That's our policy. And so if you want to restrict any one of those funds separately, you all need to decide that as a commission.
Well, that's why I bring it up.
Yeah.
And I would assume now's the time to do that.
So quarterly for the Heart of Danville, it would be a $5,000, the way it's currently presented, contribution once a quarter. Now, we will say that they have been very active and are actively trying to coordinate some sort of discussion on the Christmas parade, as I remember. And so we're going to give them credit for that, and we'll continue to try to work with their new now permanent staff. And
And let me make a correction on one of my footnotes in there. It says the present EDP as it exists has $388,000 in the bank account. That is now $443,000 in the bank account.
which would roll over to the Development Corporation, but point made, yeah.
That has not been articulated.
Well, I mean,
They have not made that decision. I understand what you're saying.
Correct.
That would, logic would dictate that,
Right.
but
Theoretically,
logic
it's,
doesn't always rule
yeah,
the day.
theoretically, it's really the only path for the funds. Theoretically, that's the only real true legal path for the funds, the way they're currently, the way it's currently structured. Is to roll into the new Development Corporation.
Yeah, because that's who's going to make the major decisions along with the EDA.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Well, let me be.
Unless the board votes to make an investment in something consistent with what their current mission is, which is economic development, so they would still have the opportunity to invest in the same thing that they would have already had the opportunity to invest in, marketing or, yeah, right, staffing.
Let me be specific.
Okay,
Commissioner Caudle's motion was very clear. The memo that you and I received yesterday, Earl, leaves me with the impression that they want to continue an effort to expand to reflect more of what we've got now. Did I misconstrue that?
No, well, yes, actually, what they are saying is that what we've tried to confirm historically for you, the EDA, for example, is a recommendation, what he confirmed in his email, the way I read it, is they're acknowledging that EDP board has to make decisions around the recommended structure, and what he's ceding to is that they'll continue to do that with the smaller, more nimble board per recommendation from the city commission, taking the city commission's recommendation to heart. That's what he's suggesting, but the city commission doesn't automatically restructure that board. What he's confirming for you is that the EDP board has to meet and discuss that and make a decision about that, its own destiny, because it's a board. It's got its own legs. The EDA, it goes back to what we said during those meetings. It wasn't the EDA making the decision on behalf of the EDP.
That's correct.
The correct discussion format is in the EDP board meeting footprint, because it is a legal board. Those are voting members.
The EDA just took the lead on suggesting at 30,000 feet, here's a better way to do this.
Correct. So the current EDP board, as it's structured, has to vote to revise its bylaws and adjust its membership accordingly. And what the discussion from the chairperson was, is that they intended to take up that discussion. That was the way I simply read it. I didn't read it any other way.
Okay.
I didn't try to read into it anything
Well,
else. I took it at on its face value.
Go ahead, sir.
And hopefully the discussion will lead to approving the recommendation with 7 people, or it might expand it to 9, but hopefully it won't go beyond the 9 in the
Correct.
restructuring.
Correct. And so then, too, you got to keep in mind, the city and county are on the EDP and do have votes on the EDP and do have sway on the EDP. It's not like it's on an island by itself existing over on the left. It's not doing that. It's a board that you have seats on. I think Commissioner Caudle's one of those votes. I think the mayor's one of those votes. And currently, I think the city manager is one of those votes. I think it's those 3 voters representing the city. So I think with Commissioner Calder making the motion, I think, that's 3 out of 17 towards that recommended development corporation. So we got good hopes that they'll get there, and certainly with Commissioner Caudle's motion, if it goes a different direction, certainly before we distribute the money quarterly, then we will certainly bring that to your attention and make sure that's still what you want to do.
Okay, you had asked about a motion. I'm ready to make a motion to approve the community agencies and the shared agencies recommendations presented here by staff. The total being roughly $500,000.
Where'd you get the
Yeah,
500,000?
where are we going?
The 144,800 plus the 365,973. You have to add those 2 together, right?
No.
Well, that's the total,
That's the
yes.
total. 365,973 is the total of the 2.
No, that's
No,
not the total,
no,
Mayor.
no,
The-
no.
The
Okay.
total is those 2 combined.
Yeah.
So what's that number?
I didn't mean to shock you all, but
Yeah, you did.
510, right?
Yep.
Yep.
Understanding that 365 of that is towards the airport board, economic development, and planning and zoning.
Sure, right.
Right.
Mr. Atkins has made a motion. Is there a second?
I'm a second.
Mr. Hollins made a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Chair call the question. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Motion carries. Continue on, Mr. Coffey.
Thank you. The next couple sheets, we have 2 that represent a total of the capital that's included in the budget. I know that it's difficult to see on the screen up here, but we've printed a copy on your desk. We'll start with, and review the list by department, and without going into each individual detail of the department, unless y'all want to dive into it, I'll let you all decide to do that if you want to. The police department, the total investment, we are suggesting $25,000 in building repairs for those folks over there. We'd like to repaint and replace the floor tile. They have money for K-9 investment. They have a radio system investment, miscellaneous weapons, and computers. The total investment that's considered capital for the police department is $270,000. For the fire department, we've included the purchase of one of the fire trucks that should be delivered in the calendar year. We're looking at it, but by the end of the year, hopefully. Recall that's been ordered for some time. Talk about that for a half second. The delivery of a fire truck is now 500 days plus, so please anticipate in the back of your minds us ordering the next truck pretty soon. Could be as early as the next commission meeting that we would ask. It would be sourced through Sourcewell also, the same methodology used to purchase this truck, which was a little bit slightly under budget. And what we'd like to do is go ahead and get that thing ordered, and because it will take almost 2 years to get it.
So when you say slightly under budget, how much was budgeted? What was the actual figure?
We had pulled in $750,000 originally, that just for the purchase of the vehicle. The purchase of the vehicle is like $709,000, $710,000. And so we're outfitting the truck with the other $40,000. So the number's not changing, but we're not having to outfit it with additional funds.
So based on the particular utility for the proposed new truck, what do you estimate the cost of that to be?
Well, the proposed new truck has been in your long-term capital plan, but it'd be a similar level of investment of $750,000 total.
So it's not like another ladder truck where you're at 1.2?
No,
Okay.
no, it's a regular truck.
So other than the truck, their capital requests are like 125 or 29 or something thousand dollars?
Correct. So you have a minor renovation to Station 2 out on the bypass of $25,000. We'd like to there's some roof work, there's some things like that need done. Then we have some equipment, training equipment that where we'll be doing, more additional training over time, rescue tools, CPR equipment. And then so that total is $129,000 when you include the fire truck, which has been ordered, like I said, for a while, and money has been reserved for a while for that, is $879,000. Communications is basically some computer purchases, total of $20,000. Public Works has a long list. A lot of it is related to facility investments, for example. Well, let's go back. We know that we're programmed to purchase and update one of the dump trucks. We still have one that's out. We have a couple that's outlived their useful life. This program's into the budget this year, the replacement of one of those. We have then outfitted with that a snowplow, and then also the replacement of the old flatbed truck that's now 20-plus years old with a new one. And then we're considering and we're requesting to purchase a smaller street sweeper to do more detailed work around downtown, for example. Parking garage where you can get in that structure with a smaller sit-on-top street sweeper would be something we certainly, we've talked about it for a while, staff, and certainly if the money is there, let's go ahead and do that and buy it outright, and if we can get 20, 25 years out of it, that's terrific. Then the rest of that is facility investments. We're putting $50,000 towards sidewalks. We're putting some money in for the gazebo renovation, we think, with the parks investment, and now we'll be able to find a place for that and be able to pull that out of storage and reinstall
I
it.
thought the idea was to incorporate that into the downtown master plan.
Possibly so, but we want to make sure there's funding there to do something with it.
But now you're talking about moving it to the park?
Well, you could. I mean, it's a discussion to be had, we're just trying to make sure that there's money in the budget to account for it.
Okay.
Right.
Thanks for the money for the welcome signs.
It's time. Those signs need to be consistent with your new wayfinding signage, and they've just outlived their useful life. the way-
Well, and as you travel around and you look at what other communities have done, you know, we were kind of one of the first to do it. Everybody's not only caught up, but they surpassed us. Their signs look significantly more substantial than ours.
Yeah, and those are not cheap, but it's definitely time to reinvest in those. We have corridor improvements projects such as, and I would let Josh describe that more fully, but just such as Bergen Road, beautification projects, things like that. Then we've got the Brownfield grant. We are budgeting the full expenditure of that. Don't believe we would ever get to 300,000 this year, but we're certainly doing environmental phase ones and working on those grant dollars. There's the comprehensive plan implementation for the various components that are the city, and then also we allocated the homeless shelter initiative. I was trying to think about how to describe that. There again, we really don't have a full plan, but we think with the completion of the Public Works facility and it's time to be able to have that conversation. And so we're trying to put some money there for that effort. And that is a random number in a sense. If you were to build a homeless shelter somewhere, that would not be enough money. If you have one of your existing buildings, maybe to outfit it for use, that would be way more than enough money. So we've picked a number there just to have a placeholder and to give you all some room to navigate over the course of time, right?
And I like the way you said initiative. It doesn't limit it to a shelter, so
That's
good.
correct, yep.
What's the school district improvement project, Earl?
I would ask Josh to describe that fully. I can't, off the top of my head,
Okay.
repeat that. And we can certainly make sure he provides that. He's explained it to me. I can't remember. My
fine.
brain just,
And you
That's
mentioned
filled up.
corridor improvement projects. I would like attention directed to Stanford Avenue.
yeah.
I mean, to me, that's the weak link in our entries into the community.
Well, with the trail investment, that is one of the areas that's getting the Stanford Road Trail Crossing that is funded partly with a grant. And that will clean up there or where the trail crosses Stanford Road, the pedestrian trail does.
In fact, I think there's a tract of land out there that probably should have been mowed 2 years ago. And what's good for the goose is good for the gander. If you've got a rule and you make everybody else abide by it, it needs to be everybody.
Yep.
You got the welcome to Danville signs. Does that include wayfindage?
Now, the wayfinding line is down below that in the next section. So those are specific to the Public Works, things the Public Works would ultimately be executing. Just miscellaneous general fund investment, you'll have $25,000 in server replacement, and then IT vehicle outfit. Then the wayfinding is an $80,000 investment.
Okay.
And the finance accounting system, we've set aside $400,000 for that software investment, which is probably what it should have been originally.
I thought that's what Lee was.
Don't give her any ideas. She'll be asking for a
Listen.
raise.
I'll be honest with you, when you look at all the spreadsheets and do that, Lee, how hard is it? How unnecessarily hard is that?
It's absolutely ridiculous. I'm sorry. In 2022, it's absolutely outrageously ridiculous.
How many layers and steps it takes
It
to
is.
assemble a
It
full
is.
So
spreadsheet?
just curious, how far behind are we in terms of the kind of technology you need?
So, well,
15 years?
and to be fair, a lot of other city governments and local governments are similar. But there are quite a few that are miles ahead of us, like, for instance, Richmond, Frankfurt. They're all utilizing softwares that we're looking into that are, hopefully, we've issued our RFP, so hopefully they'll submit a bid to us so that we can catch up. But it's
I
very.
would argue this, I would argue that there's very few cities our size
Right.
that are not, have not taken that step 10 years ago.
So when do you think, will you be up and running on this a year from now?
So this is just based on what I know of the process and kind of some research I've done. It will probably take, once it's officially, we've signed a contract, it's started from the ground up. It'll probably take a good year this time next year to be fully implemented for the accounting and the accounting side of it. If a budgeting portion is, if a software that we pick has a budgeting component that we like, that we choose, that could potentially come quicker, because implementing those are a little bit easier than the true accounting finance side of it. Potentially, though, this time next year, we should be up and running, barring any horrible circumstances.
You've asked for a lot of commitment right there, and she's doing the best she can to not overcommit herself.
Well, I'm
They're-
actually surprised pleasantly that you said it would be that quick. I'm sitting there thinking, you
it
know, by
could-
the time she gets everything done. it'd
It could be that quick because
could
we've
be.
already gone to Paylocity,
Yeah.
and we've already gone through that transition with trying to build Paylocity's interaction with our general ledger. There's a lot of things that we've already worked on, which is the reason it's even possible to
It'll
say that.
be also highly dependent on what the vendor's schedule is. We might the vendor might not be able to get us that quickly. We might run into issues with our current software. So a year is a tentatively good, optimistic estimate. But,
Now, we've been down this path once,
yes.
like 2 years or 2.5 years ago. And that was a big number. And we spent it. And I
No,
believe-
we didn't spend it. We didn't,
Oh, that's right, we canceled.
no,
We canceled a big part of that.
part of it, yeah.
That decision was made by essentially two folks. I would request that her recommendations be viewed by a,
So I'm
More
nowhere,
eyes.
I'm not going anywhere near it until they get as a group. And when I say they, I mean finance and multiple people in the office, including IT's been involved. So we're not, Marshall's been heavily involved with, and he's working on software. I know they went to, yesterday to 2 site visits to look at, Marshall did. And so we're not going to bottle that up.
So tentatively for the finance portion, we'll have myself, obviously, but a committee of other departments to look at it and, give their opinion. I will have probably a weightier opinion just because I will be using it most frequently and know what it needs for the finance side. But we don't essentially want a closed black box decision made.
Right.
Because what I do choose in the end, we choose as a city, it does impact every portion of the city.
sure,
So.
sure. Good, thank you.
Going on down through the list, the next is Parks and Recreation, and it basically is a mirror of the master plan broken out into subcategories. For example, what Josh is projecting each subsection. The Jackson Park Land and Water Grant, for example, is part of that grant that we've already received. That, there's no telling when that will actually come in. Now, some of the things that we are doing outside of those grants, which there's on the next sheet at the top of the next page, at the very top, there's 2 more. There's the trails, and we've put in a grant application for that, and then there's the Stanford Road R2P grant, also of $125,000. So some of those are along those lines. So it's either the master plan broken out or the grant matches that we have in play. But above that is the Millennium Park, and what we're asking is to reinvest in Millennium Park at a level of about $350,000 above and beyond the parks master plan that Josh has been working on, that he's presented to you all multiple times. This includes go ahead and renovate the ball field that is left on the Little League side. There's 2 fields there. There's a field in Jackson Park we'd like to work on. The PA system across the board is about $200,000. Parks and Rec is asking that we replace that on all fields. That's 25 years old, 20 years old, whatever the year is now. So certainly that makes a lot of sense. And then go ahead and striping and seal the parking lots of the soccer and softball complex to preserve those. That's just base that is down, and that does ravel over time. Stormwater program is the line below parks, and that is a $820,000 investment. Josh has pulled this back up to the original schedule, and the sewer improvements is the Belinda corridor, Belinda area. And then, of course, he's got some administrative things, update the stormwater manual, and then do the engineering for the next phase, which is sub-basin F and G. Not the full engineering, the assessment, I think is the correct word. Also, with the stormwater funds, he is suggesting that we replace the excavator, and that's probably a fair time to do that. I would say that one's probably 20 years old, the one we have, or 15 anyway. Cemetery, you can see there the investment of about $425,000 in infrastructure at the facilities broken out. The parking fund below that is a $205,000 investment. $130,000 of it is in the structural improvements to the elevator assembly. As we go through that, that's simply roll forward. And then also, he's setting aside and requesting $50,000 to support downtown parking implementation, whatever that ultimately looks like. The total on the general fund basic capital is 3,515. Then these other funds, including the investment in parks, is $9,975,000. The utility fund is.
Earl, before you go to that, go back to the cemetery about the communal shelters.
Yes, sir.
Why is there such a drastic difference in the cost? Am I reading the wrong line or what?
I think that's the way he just provided it. I think some of the upgrades are intended for the communal shelter in Bellevue too.
Yeah. So you got 150, well.
Yeah, I think the way, what I saw, you're going to have about $125,000 investment in the communal shelter in Bellevue and about $150,000 in Hilldale, strictly because of the way their location is set up.
So shouldn't we change that number?
I'm going to leave it in upgrades because that gives him a little bit more flexibility
Oh,
with
so
the
you-
master plan.
So in that $200,000, there's some upgrades there, yeah. Because it looks like the shelter's gonna cost $150,000 in Hillsdale.
Correct, yeah.
It wouldn't be that
And
expensive.
again, I probably, maybe he should clarify the upgrades, what, the more of the details and upgrades. Now, keep in mind, we're expanding Bellevue. You're gonna, he's been working on the fence now. There's some access work there. So the upgrades, it really provides you with enough resources to make an impact on the appearance to the facility and then start the process of accomplishing some of the mayor's specific objectives. I know he's chomping at the bit probably to market or campaign for the cemetery investment, but
Well, we've talked about this committal thing for how many years?
long time, we're getting it, we're getting
And
it.
it just needs to get done.
Yep,
Can I back up on something?
yep,
On Parks and Rec,
yes, sir.
unless I'm not seeing it, there's nothing in here about Bunny Davis.
The Parks and Rec master plan doesn't have any investment in Bunny Davis.
Okay, so this is just the master plan. Okay.
Yep. Okay, the next is the utility fund.
Can I jump in on that line? Do we have an ultimate plan for Bunny Davis then? I can't remember what the master plan says. Is that something we're gonna surplus sell? Or-
Surplus sale ultimately, whenever the new facilities are in line to replace what services that are there.
Okay.
So for example, Parks and Rec operations as a staff, could move into the new community building that's now in the fairgrounds once renovated. That's the intention. And so as those facilities find new homes, that becomes a surplus asset,
Thank you.
which was originally intended back in the day, as communicated to me historically. The utility fund,
Back up just a moment.
all right, pausing, letting it air out a little bit.
On upgrades of the cemetery, you got, what does that incorporate?
I don't have that in front of me. I would have to let him pull out the master plan to give you those details. But like I said, we're talking about expanding it. You're talking about access. You've got a road to build there. You have the fence to put in. I don't have those broken out in detail.
Okay,
Right.
okay, thanks. I'll shut up.
We can, when Josh provides his next Public Works update, we'll ask him to spend a little bit more time breaking those subcategories of expenses. So for example, in Parks and Recreation, we're talking about an investment on site development of Jenny Rogers of a number. So we can delineate any of those numbers down farther into a different tier if you want them. And so certainly what I'll have him do is invest that time Monday, or not Monday, but the next time he gives his department update, we'll have him do that for the cemetery, okay?
So on the aquatic rec center, at 4 million, is that just budgeted so that we can make the sinking fund for that? Because I don't think the commission's made a decision to go
No,
left
not-
or go right.
Not on the final location or anything like that, no.
Okay, so you're just gonna hold that?
Yes, that is the amount that we've set aside for that purpose.
Got it.
So the utility fund is broken out. As you can see, there's a lot of, the two big things driving the total investment in the utility fund of $21,249,000 is basically carryover projects. The wastewater plant phase 1, which is still under construction, a majority of that's going to happen after July. You have about $10 million left in that construction contract that will occur after July. Then also you have about $5 million in Lebanon Road sewer work that we've talked about serving the Corporate Drive area, Megget. And then you also have additional waterline work on Perryville Road to finish up that has been ongoing for a while. Now, added to this number is some of the ARPA projects. You'll see we footnoted those over on the right in small print. For example, Spears Creek, we talked about the ARPA money last year, 900,000 of that to $1 million being used for Spears Creek renovation, which was previously scheduled. So we footnoted that. However, I would add that we have designed it, we have been trying, that has been one of those projects that is in process that, staff time is limiting when that actually starts. But we're trying to transition to begin that construction soon with the new fiscal year. Junction City and Perryville are investments that we have solicited from the county for their eligible ARPA funds to support those ratepayers that are out in the county. So the city would use its ARPA money on Spears Creek, which serves the north side of the community. And then the county, we are asking them that they commit their funds to offset debt, future impactful rate impact projects in Perryville and Junction City. And so that we have sent them a letter, they verbalized yes, and so we're following up on that now. It's that time, so we hope to have that resolved in the month of June.
Kudos and appreciation to the county for working with the city on this. Wonderful example of what we can do when we decide to pool our resources.
So now below that, to your point, Mayor, yeah, that is a significant thing. The county's already done things for Parksville with their ARPA money or on behalf of Parksville with the ARPA money. And It does impact the rate. It offsets future rate increases, and it's a significant thing for both Parksville and, or Parksville Water District, Perryville Community, and Junction City Community as part of our system. So we appreciate that 110%. Below that is just a basic list for you of the major investments of capital. So you have, and that would be this area in here is basic list and really a small description of, as a reminder, this is just a reminder of all the things you have going on that this system above it is funding or contributing to. So for example, the Central Fire Station, that is still will be an expenditure in the next fiscal year, even though it's nearing completion. There will be unspent money that's still there, all the way through the Public Works Building, parks. Any land acquisition would occur out of reserves. Church Street, the extension out of the municipal aid fund of Church Street across from Main Street here over to Martin Luther King, that's still ongoing. Josh is trying to prepare for that. Trail extensions, the streetscape project. We want to investigate, consistent with the downtown master plan, renovations to the Walnut Street corridor. There's some money in the streetscape fund to do that. We'll go over that here in a little bit. Roadway development such as Church Street, such as the extension at Fox Harbor behind Applebee's, where we've talked about that before. We're rolling those funds into this budget, which is why this budget is growing. So when you look at the summary here in a second, these projects are transitioning as carryovers from an old budget into the new budget. So that number, you're not committing more dollars than you committed before. It's just they're stacking up where they're not spent yet. Does that make sense? And so then the downtown master wastewater plant phase 1, sanitary sewer rehab, and the water system expansion. And then there's a little bit coming out of compliance on the utility for lead and copper. And we say it like that to make sure, that's going to be a $200,000 investment this year in total. Most of it will occur with the streetscape project, but that will be an expense going forward. The lead, implementation of lead and copper rule, Marshall's talked about it at different staff reports, and I want to mention it again because, and beat that drum because it is an expense, and it is a new regulation partly driven by the Flint, Michigan issue and trying to preempt future incidents like that. We don't have that issue here, but you want to eliminate all possibilities of that issue in the future, and that's what the intent of the lead and copper rule is. Does it make sense? So those numbers on those two sheets, as you take them home and you want to study them, all those numbers are included in the budget that we're about to provide you the summary sheet of, okay? And so certainly you're going to have questions about that. Any questions you have, please email us, and we'll get into the detail if you want that clarification. We're not going to try to spend an hour and a half trying to detail everything here with you. We'll let you digest it, and then as we present the budget letter, what we'd like to do is add some narrative describing our capital investment with a little bit of, to provide a little bit of clarity for the average, someone that wants to that is interested, right? So we'll try to do that with the budget cover letter. Okay, so then moving into, once you understand that both the community agency allocations that you just approved, those are in this, then the capital that we just showed you is also in this sheet. So you have the summary sheet here, which is page 6 on your desk, with the numbers in the bottom left. This is the summary appropriations for FY23 as proposed, which is the blue column. It is 95,969,209. Now, like we talked about, that is a significant amount of that is capital that is still ongoing. So we roll over from last year's number, for example, the Parks and Rec investment. We are moving into the investment in streetscape, for example. You're increasing the expenditure on the utility fund to account for the sewer infrastructure and the wastewater plant project itself. So for example, the utility of that 32, operations is only about 12 of that. right? The vast majority of that is completion of the capital that you have ongoing. And certainly, we can talk about the separation between raw capital and those numbers, but you'll really see it as you get into the summary sheets for each individual fund, okay? The reserve column is on the far right, so we'd ask that you consider comparing the two reserve columns. The reserves that we projected at the end of the fiscal year that we are in was $25,585,000 after completion of the current budget. What we are suggesting is after you fully expend the capital dollars that are contained in the FY '23 appropriation, when you get to the end of the next fiscal year, you should be at about 26 million. So right now, the final reserve number should be about where it's at in the fiscal year we're in, which demonstrates that your capital is funded with the budget. Does that make sense? And then you're maintaining your operational reserve at about the level it's at now. Now, one of the things that the finance director and I talked about even this morning a little bit is that what we've been cautious about is issuing debt on the streetscape project, considering the amount of money that we have in reserve. We have want to fund as much as we can without incurring debt. And so we'll continue that investigation with Parks and Recreation so that the final request for or presentation of a bond ordinance would reflect what we believe is a reasonable investment of cash on hand versus debt service. So we would like to invest more of the reserve instead of bonding everything, in other words. So we will investigate that and try to continue to provide a financial update of that aspect as we get into the actual implementation of the new budget. Does that make sense at all?
And the citizens appreciate that because it's like using money we have versus borrowing.
Totally correct.
So
Yeah.
thank you for
Yeah.
going that route.
And so on its face, we'll repeat the summary here. The numbers go up, but it's because of capital that is not finished, such as the wastewater plant. But at the end of the day, the end of the fiscal year, your reserve really isn't going down necessarily. Okay?
And you anticipate having lots of projects completed.
Well, yeah, and it's kind of like the airport master plan.
Yeah.
Things take forever.
Yeah.
And with this market, for example, at the fire station next door, the building is nearing completion, but the lockers won't be here for 8 more weeks.
Right, right. But
Those things right now are impacting our ability to complete projects. Cement nationwide is you have an extreme shortage of just raw cement for concrete mix. And so our local plant actually was concerned about limiting their daily production to make sure they have some material in reserve, right? So that is impacting the construction industry here.
Yeah, but, and again, just use the fire station for an example. Once you broke ground, you started construction, folks got excited, but they wanted it done within a month's time, not over a year's time. So, but it's great to be able to say we're starting these projects and we've got to be patient to get them completed correctly. So appreciate that.
Yep. Thank you. All right, so now, the summaries for each one of these funds, if you all want to look at those today, we can do that. You have the summary sheet. Each one of these sheets really have not changed since last week, each one of the department sheets. The only variation on your summary sheet, which let's look at the general fund, page 7, which is the very next page, we have added what we believe correctly, the capital to both the estimated column and which is this column here. So your capital down here where we think the year end will be, and also where we think that the capital will be out of this for next year, right? So now what we have done is we've fully assembled these two columns based on all the financial information we have today, based on the community allocations, based on the capital program that we provided you today, which we also provided last week, but we changed its format a little bit to make it a little bit more understandable. Now, we've done that for all the funds, and so what you have in front of you is fully filled out now. The only exception is the very bottom row is we want to confirm what the fund balance carry forward is. We've done a cursory review of that with it based on last year's end and the cash position that we're in. We had Craig Butler try to reconfirm our cash position. And so each fund is generally accurate with where our projection is for the end of the fiscal year as you go through. So in this case, the fund balance carry forward for the general fund should be accurate relative to where we believe we will end up. Right now, you got to keep in mind this estimated column is still estimated until all the bills are paid for the fiscal year we're in.
Let me ask Commissioners Cardle and Atkins, since you all have been here longer, have you all ever seen a breakdown of the fund balance? You know, what is it composed of? Where is it? I mean, it's a number on the page, but that's all I've ever seen.
Well, so we did provide the breakout in all checking accounts last week, or the last meeting to you. It was in your packet. We presented Craig's summary of our cash information in all accounts, in all funds there. Now, we don't, what Lee and I talked about is we have to get into our investment accounts and really understand, are they earning, as you suggested this morning. So we've had that conversation also, and we know that's the next step in terms for her to being able to give you all assurances that everything's best management practice. Are we achieving?
I'm going to request that we be given a copy of that. I think every commissioner needs to know what we've got and where it is and what it looks like.
Yeah, I thought we had done that at the last budget meeting in the PDF, but we will get you a new copy today.
You may have, I don't recall.
No, that's okay. We'll email it out today. We have it, and we included it last time when we talked about, fund balance, but we'll do that. We can do that again, no problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's something we need to know.
What we'd like to know is, we would like that to be included, our bank balance sheet, we would like that to be included in your financial updates
Sure.
as we give them.
As it should be.
As it should be, yes. Yeah. Not just a spreadsheet that we've created that shows a number, correct? Like, we would like you to see the actual fund balance.
That's how I do my bank account.
That's how, yeah.
Well, and I guess you all are comfortable with the estimated fund balance carry forward of 26 million plus and a proposed fund balance of 14 million plus for the next year. We feel okay with that because it's well above the 25% operational that's required.
Correct.
Okay. And that's even coming out of COVID, we're still in that good financial shape, so.
Correct.
We would love for it to be better, but, that's pretty good.
Earl, I didn't see any numbers in here for the north-south connector or east-west, and perhaps we don't need to put any numbers to that, but any communication, any update on those?
The east-west connector, Josh is programming some engineering dollars for that. I'm trying to find where I showed it. In the capital request that I included is funding for the engineering work on the east-west connector. And I've lost it. I looked at it there a few minutes ago, looked right at it. Nevertheless, so that there is money set aside for engineering work on the east-west connector road, that the city can push that project forward with the state and try to get in advance of that.
What page is that on?
I'm going to dig it up here for you. And we'll go to the municipal aid and show you where he's funding that. I'll give you a page number in just a
No,
second.
you, no,
Go to page 22 on your big spreadsheets.
You said page 22?
Yep. So what we have there is the $620,000 number that is lines, let me just show you exactly where it's at. Well,
Mine's not matching up with that. You sure page 22?
it should be, so the numbers that are in this bottom left corner, if you go to sheet 22, it looks like this.
Oh, okay.
That's your municipal aid sheet. And so then on that sheet, on that line, you have streets and roads here of 620,000. That is broken down into 500,000 for the Church Street extension, 100,000 for the east-west connector for the engineering work. We have money set aside for the engineering work for the extension on Fox Harbor, for example. Out of that 620,000 that's where our roadway work is occurring.
where's the other 20,000?
I'm sorry?
Where's the other 20,000?
It's embedded in that number of 620,000.
Okay, so, when do you anticipate the work beginning?
With the engineering, so you've just hired, if you'll remember, at the recent commission meeting, you've hired Palmer Engineering.
Right.
So we're doing that background work now with Palmer.
Okay.
Yep.
On our budget for our police department, I think we've had a pretty robust discussion this week about the need for increased personnel in the school systems. How do we accomplish that without straining additional resources?
I don't know yet. The grant program that Chief Gray discussed at when we were together with the school districts, that's your most likely source of additional funds that are external.
How much was that?
It's based on the district's overall needs. I mean, it could be several officers, several positions, could be none. So what we have to do is go through that grant program and investigate that and see what opportunities there are ultimately. But what we need to do first is sit down with the school district, like we talked about, and decide what is the level of investment in safety resource officers, and how should they be distributed, and who is doing what school, and the whole idea, but the city or is it the SO unit, city police, it shouldn't matter, because what we should do is strategically locate the officers in the schools that can combat issues that are inside of the schools. So for example, if you have a child now that is sophomore in high school, chances are they know everybody in every school around us, including Casey County and Lincoln County. With social media now, our kids know and have friends way outside of the building that they're in. And so the connectivity of those police officers or that security team from school A to school B is critical. So we need to look at that, and so that discussion is what was discussed the other day. And so we would like to follow up on that meeting and try to align security interests with the school's interests, with the public's, what perceived interests are, and really come back with changes and amendments to that. And this budget only goes so far, and certainly that conversation has not been had. Therefore, this budget doesn't include the full investment of that. That is something that the chief and city manager will have to come back to you with.
Can I request that you all have that discussion with school officials this month? Because you basically have a window between now and probably the 1st of August, and then their summer's over.
I totally agree with you. And matter of fact, the chief and I talked a lot about that. So we used to, as the chief pointed out, go through the schools to orient our officers at least with where the entrance and exit doors are. Now, that's not to say you have a plan, but you do a walkthrough once a year of your buildings like that. And so we're going to reestablish that program and talking to the chief, and then make sure that the new officers that are here today have at least been in each one of the buildings once. And so we'll do that and.
Go ahead, sir.
Well, no, but you're right. That has to be done this summer. That meeting needs to take place this summer too, yeah.
And I would hope this summer that not only would you have the walkthrough, but I would request that you have a schematic of every building. You have a letter assigned to every hallway or area, and a number put on every door. Because that was made pretty clear yesterday.
Yeah,
You know,
well, the schools are required to do some of that, but one of the ideas that the sheriff had at the meeting was, why is the number lettering system of School A different than School B,
Right.
different than Building C, right? Let's be very
Let's be consistent.
thoughtful about that lettering system or numbering system and be consistent with that across in every school in every district.
Now's the time to do that.
And so, yeah, there's discussions like that need to be
And
had.
Earl, part of the discussion probably needs to be that Danville and Bow County need to revisit the School Safety Institute at EKU. Get those folks back up here, because they've done audits in the schools, they've mapped out and done all the stuff that the mayor's
That
talking
suggestion-
about.
Yeah, we'll point that out. Yeah, that's a good.
That suggestion was made yesterday, I think.
I didn't hear that, but maybe it was. That
They
doesn't
talked
mean.
about have somebody come in and do the audit.
Yeah.
They'll take the 5 schools in Bow County, whatever number of schools in Danville, and where there can be similarities, so law enforcement can say, well, I see signal so-and-so in Bow County school, but it means the same thing on Danville school. So
Yeah.
they'll help do some of that stuff, just it's done, and
So one of the numbers that jumped out to me during that conversation is that we have 11 different buildings in our two school systems. 11.
They're not little.
They're not little, and,
they're just the ones that house kids on a regular basis.
yeah,
You look at all the other places.
I mean, that's a lot if you're addressing one building, but heaven forbid you had to address two simultaneously.
And I'm sure the schools have been required. In the past, schools have been required to have, I call them addresses for all classrooms, as well as for all schools too, but I've been out of that business for a few years, but hopefully we'll still have some of that stuff. But I like to think about the floor plan too, because the floor plans have definitely changed in all of the schools.
And
Well,
the
you-
reason I'm pushing you on this is simply a timing issue. Time gets away from all of us. You got basically 2 months to, and.
No, you're totally correct. This
you
summer's the
blink and
time.
It's already over.
And the other thing that we talk about school safety, the state mandates without funding. The schools try to implement the mandates, but have very little funding, and then, so it trickles down to the city and county and how much of our funding can really be, Again, it's our citizens, so we want to be involved in the schools as much as we can, but for the city to be financing 6 or 8 police officers for the 4 of them in city schools, that'd be a tough load to carry.
That's a big load.
Yeah. You need more than that. So there's got to be some good collaboration on that project. And I think the mayor's push about, we've had 17 or 18 shootings since the attack on the school in Texas. They were not in schools, thank goodness, but the fact that there's that many firearms, that there's that many open attacks on citizens by other citizens with firearms is just mind-boggling. 17, yeah, that's been less than what, 8 or 9
And that's
days.
probably been going on.
Oh, yeah.
It's just, the media's just now.
The media's picking up on it
Focused
more
on
and more,
that,
that's right.
yeah.
We're all getting, yeah, that's right. And it's not gonna go away, unfortunately.
No.
Yeah.
Okay, so then to steer towards the conclusion of this meeting, the spreadsheet hasn't changed operationally. The revenue in the spreadsheet's not changed from the last meeting. We now have included the budget and the capital detail, and we've gotten then therefore to a total, and that's demonstrated here of appropriations. Now, what Lee and I will do is go through the spreadsheet in detail and try to make sure that we don't have any clerical errors and that kind of thing. And then we'll put together the summary letter for you that will include the authorization like we did last year of the positions table. We'll include debt profile for you in summary. And then we will contemplate our basis for the revenue projections, and that's included in the budget. And then we'll include the detail of capital summary and narrative form, identifying some of the work in each capital project. And, but please take a minute to look at the numbers again on your own. If you have any questions, please send them to us. But I really don't, unless you all want to get into the operation expenses again, they're the same, they've not changed.
And page 7. which
Yes, sir.
is The summary for the general fund, I get to that 5 million something for capital. Well, that's a big number. That's a good number.
Yeah.
Yeah. It went down.
Well, and then two, point out that the total commitment is the 17 number, this non-departmental. This includes your commitment to the streetscape project and to Parks and Recreation here,
Oh, yeah, but phew.
right? So this covers the outlay just straight out of the general fund for the fire, the $270,000 for police, the fire truck. That's in the $5 million number. Your investment in streetscape and parks is in this number above it, two rows above it.
But that makes it $23 million. That's,
Correct.
yeah, wow. Considering what we've been through, that's a big number.
It's a healthy contribution, yeah. But, and again, a lot of it's carryover too. So you allocated the Parks and Rec direction last year. So that just moves forward into this number.
And how we share and get all this out to the public will be really important, isn't it?
Oh, and I'm so glad you brought that up, Commissioner Atkins.
Uh-oh. Well,
Newsletter.
Ashley, we're working on it. She's got it close. I know. We got to publish it. We've gotten stories and we've got to just publish it at this point.
So what's your ETA on that?
Well, we're about 2 weeks behind because of the budget work, but
So do you-
imminent, we'll say imminent in the next couple weeks at the latest. I mean, it should be, it won't be this week. By the end of next week, I'll commit to having something published by the end of next week. Before the next commission meeting, we will have it in paper form out.
So to JH's point, how do you communicate what all we're doing and how that's going to play out going forward?
We have to do a good job with the budget letter. And you know, once you get that done, then we need to do some website postings describing it and that kind of thing. And really, you know, you're going to have another round of outward newsletter stuff in July and August, somewhere in that period. Some things that we're trying to do too, you could talk about the budget at, you know, we're trying to plan for that second economic development symposium that we did last year as a follow-up to that. You know, that should occur in August too. And certainly you could take some time there to talk about the financial impact of the budget. That would be helpful for the average person to understand. There's a lot of people at that meeting that need to hear and need to understand
Yes, they do.
what's in the number. So we'll think about that more. We'll think about that.
Anything we can do to help you with that, then feel free to leverage.
I don't know if this is the right time to ask. I was not able to find the May 19th meeting on our YouTube.
One of the meetings where the mayor showed the 60-minute video was pulled off of YouTube.
Can
But
they
c-
take that out?
Don't blame the
Because,
mayor, you all showed it. I just
Well, no, I'm
just
saying,
gave it to you.
we're blaming, no, I didn't mean to do that. That wasn't really what our intention.
Okay,
But it was a
so-
copyright infringement, and they did lock down that entire video. that
Okay,
entire-
so-
Is there any way to retrieve it at all?
Well, the May 19th meeting was Dr. Roush's presentation, the whole EDA. I have had so many people, y'all aren't being transparent. We want to know about this new group. We wanted to see Dr. Roush's presentation. This is an important meeting to
I
show.
Totally agree. And if we can do something, we will. We'll visit that with
Can we
IT.
provide packet information? So legally,
Well,
you
that was
can't
already
show up
provided,
until that
yeah.
point?
I don't know. We'll investigate it with IT and try to figure something out. If we can put all or part of it back out there, we will, but it was pulled by YouTube
So
because of the copyright infringement of 60 Minutes.
to Commissioner Holland's point, when is this, is there a date set for this meeting to take place to discuss further the Boyle Development Corporation? Is there,
It's what the email that was sent by the
Right.
chair was at their next meeting in June.
June 11? Was it?
I don't remember the date
Okay,
off the
so
top of my head.
after that, I think you'll have something that is beyond just a proposal stage.
I agree with that.
I would suggest, though, to the public that we submit online the schematics
Yeah.
as a draft.
Yeah, so what we should do is take our last little revision that we made for Dr. Roush. We could put that up on the city's website with a little bit of commentary maybe.
It's a draft.
Yeah.
There's
So-
nothing final about that.
Right, so that concept was confirmed by the commission's vote, so we can approach it like that and present it as the commission's recommendation and work.
Okay, will you email me when that's up?
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll try to get organized on that today, yeah.
Okay,
That won't
thank you.
take
I thought,
long.
what a meeting to have to take down. Wow.
Well, I know it,
Very
I know it.
important one, very
I know it.
important one.
Yeah. Yeah, that was disappointing.
Can I move to, Ashley goes out and buys us all
We
lunch?
don't leave soon, Lindsay's gonna start daydreaming, so.
Motion has been made by Commissioner Atkins to adjourn. Is there a second? Oh, no, I didn't make that.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Carlo. Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. We are adjourned.